Modern political theory assumes that a successful system must constantly grow and accumulate resources. An expanding network is a surviving network. But the foundational text of Taoism operates on the exact opposite physics. These are the final 3 chapters of the Dao D, specifically chapters 79, 80, and 81, translated here by James Ledge. Read in sequence, these chapters provide a rigorous, highly structured blueprint for an anti-fragile society governed by the principle of non-contention, or Wu Wei. The blueprint operates on 3 scales. Level 1, micro, interpersonal ethics. Level 2, macro, statecraft. Level 3, meta, the universal epistemology. The mechanical problem: how does any entity govern effectively by systematically refusing to enforce its own power? To understand how Taoist statecraft scales, we first must reverse engineer the most basic unit of societal friction, a direct dispute between 2 people. Chapter 79 opens with a practical observation on conflict resolution. When a reconciliation is effected after a great animosity, there is sure to be a grudge remaining. That grudge represents residual friction in the system. It is the mathematical reality that after a conflict, perfectly balancing a ledger between 2 parties is impossible. Someone always feels shortchanged. To solve this, the text introduces the metaphor of the tally stick, stating that the sage keeps the left-hand portion of the record of the engagement. In ancient contract law, agreements were physically carved into a piece of wood or bamboo, which was then split down the middle. The left side was held by the creditor, the one owed a debt or an apology, and the right side was held by the debtor. In this diagram, the sage holds the left tally, acknowledging they are owed something. But the text dictates the sage explicitly does not insist on the fulfillment of it. Instead of extracting payment, the sage absorbs the loss, creating a state of asymmetrical obligation. By refusing to collect the debt, the sage neutralizes a cyclical counterreaction from the debtor. The systemic deficit is internalized by the party equipped to handle it, terminating the conflict. The chapter concludes that the way of heaven is always on the side of the good man, because this non-coercive approach mathematically eliminates friction at the micro level. This is the operational logic that Taoism scales up to govern a nation. Chapter 80 applies this exact logic to the macro level, shifting focus from 2 individuals to a little state with a small population. Modern political theorists often dismiss this chapter as a regressive fantasy, a plea to return to the Stone Age. The text specifies that this state possesses individuals with the abilities of 10 or 100 men, but dictates that there should be no employment of them. This is an active choice. The state possesses high capacity, but practices the deliberate discipline of unexercised power. Deploying those exceptional individuals would introduce unnecessary systemic complexity and hierarchy. The text explicitly mentions holding advanced transportation. They have boats and carriages, but they should have no occasion to ride in them. The same rule applies to the military. The state maintains buff coats and sharp weapons, but ensures there is no occasion to don or use them. The most aggressive de-escalation comes in information storage. The sage instructs the people to abandon written characters and return to the use of knotted cords. In Taoist mechanics, linguistic complexity and written law are vulnerabilities. Granular legal codes create loopholes, which generate disputes, which generate friction. Knotted cords keep data physical, localized, and strictly limited. This illustrates Taoist stability, surviving physical proximity without network interconnectivity. A neighboring state is close enough to hear the voices of fowls and dogs. Yet the text dictates the people live to old age without ever establishing trade or diplomacy with them. Chapter 80 describes the construction of a highly defended localized equilibrium. By keeping nodes isolated and refusing to build complex networks, the state prevents cascading failures from outside forces from ever entering its borders. Chapter 81 takes this physical architecture of the state and maps out the invisible epistemological rules that make it functional. It opens with a strict limit on rhetoric. Sincere words are not fine. Fine words are not sincere. The text points out that those skilled in the Tao do not dispute, and those who are extensively learned do not actually know it. In this framework, argumentation and theoretical debate are vectors of error, not pathways to truth. This justifies the rejection of written characters in the previous chapter. Fine words and endless streams of complex data obscure the blunt reality of how systems actually behave. All of this builds to the final governing physical law of the sage, a mechanism we can call the paradox of inverse accumulation. This scale demonstrates the concept. The text states, "The sage does not accumulate for himself. The more he expends for others, the more he possesses." Violating standard zero-sum economics, the sage unilaterally gives resources without demanding repayment. By doing so, the sage node mathematically increases in mass, becoming the indispensable center of gravity for the network. Chapter 81 demonstrates that the system runs on a counterintuitive physics. Security and wealth are generated not by hoarding and defending assets, but by relentless, unilateral expenditure. Returning to the complete blueprint, we can now see the fully populated model. Chapters 79, 80, and 81 present a consistent architecture of non-contention. This design removes the physical points of contact that typically generate systemic friction. The text notes that, "The doing in the way of the sage, he does not strive." This is a highly active, disciplined process. It requires immense effort to maintain this localized equilibrium and constantly resist the urge to deploy stored capacity. It operates under a final axiom. With all the sharpness of the way of heaven, it injures not. Taoist stability is achieved through radical simplification. You strip away the networks, the surplus language, and the contractual debts that cause systems to overload and break. According to the Dao D, true power bypasses the ability to win conflicts. It relies on the architectural discipline to design a system where conflict simply has no medium through which to travel.